From the food we eat, the air we breathe, the land we dwell, to the health of our body and mind and the well-being of all things in the universe. Unlock the science with Chula Radio Plus.
Welcome to Unlock the Science. I'm Virada Salim. Less than a century ago, Bangkok's cityscape was totally different from the bustling metropolis that we see today. As in the time before the modernization of the city, the area where Bangkok now stands was dominated by the canals and gardens. In the early days of Bangkok, most areas outside the city wall were once green farmlands, fruit orchards, and seasonally flooded wetlands, which were crisscrossed by a network of canals. This traditional landscape of the city was the reason why Bangkok got its globally renowned nickname, Venice of the East. Not just the canals that once Bangkok was known for, the nutrients-rich sediment from Chao Phraya River, the major lifeblood of Thailand, made fruits from Bangkok's orchards having distinctive flavor and famous throughout the country. However, with large-scale modernization and economic development of the country beginning in 1950s, these lush landscapes around Bangkok were gradually replaced by urban communities as the inner city area continuously expanded to cover surrounding farmlands. According to a study by Department of Landscape Architecture, Assoc University, the city of Bangkok grew almost 10 times within just 4 decades, as in 1959, the urban areas of Bangkok were just about 100 square kilometers, but the number surged to about 1,000 square kilometers in 2000. The rapid expansion of Bangkok has already caused us various problems as the city becomes barren of trees and green spaces. A report published in April 2022 by Rocket Media Lab, an open-source public data analysis managed by Thai people, showed that Bangkok's green space per capita now only stands at 7.49 square meters, well below the minimum of 9 square meters per capita recommended by World Health Organization or WHO. If we add the 3 million non-registered people living and working in Bangkok into the equation, the proportion of green space would drop to just 3 square meters per person. Not just having too few green spaces, Rocket Media Lab also showed that Bangkok people face problems of unequal accessibility to the green spaces. The Urban Green Space Statistics of Bangkok Metropolitan Administration, or BMA, the local government of the capital of Bangkok, lists nearly 9,000 parks of various categories in the city, but the majority of them are privately owned parks. Only 113 parks are actually accessible to the general public, according to the findings of Rocket Media Lab. Moreover, these 113 public parks are clustered within a few districts such as Pranakon, Jatuchak, and Pravet, each of which has 7 or more public parks in its boundary. On the other hand, 3 other districts do not have any green space accessible to the public at all. Districts are administrative area of Bangkok, and there are 50 districts in the capital. The inadequacy of public green spaces is a major problem of Bangkok. This is because it does not only make the cityscape less attractive, it also subsequently contributes to worsening environmental and health conditions of the city's dwellers. WHO has stressed that urban green spaces are a necessary component for delivering healthy, sustainable, and livable cities, as they allow people to retreat from the busy city life and relax in the clutch of nature. Meanwhile, trees and greenery also help filtering pollution and make the cityscape more pleasant. Therefore, WHO highlights that by assuring sufficient green space in relation to the number of local residents, they can provide a wide range of health, social, and environmental benefits for all population groups, especially those in lower socioeconomic status. Many scientific studies also indicate that urban green spaces can relieve some of major health issues, such as obesity or cardiovascular problems, and improve mental health and well-being among urban citizens. The Bangkok Metropolitan Administration, meanwhile, has insisted that it did not neglect this problem, as since 2019, the administration has been working on creating more public green spaces for people in Bangkok under a project known as Green Bangkok 2030, which aims to increase the capital's green spaces to 10 square meters per person by the year 2030. Under this project, the BMA also plans to make public green spaces reachable by everyone in Bangkok within a 10-minute walking distance. And since 2021 until the first 4 months of 2022, the administration has inaugurated 12 new public parks, adding nearly 200,000 square meters of green spaces to the capital. Nevertheless, Rocket Media Lab pointed out that BMA still faced some major challenges ahead in order to achieve its goals under the Green Bangkok 2030 project. One of the most significant problems is finding new plots of land to build public parks in a very dense city like Bangkok. It also stressed that BMA needed to carefully allocate its budget to equally create new public parks in every district and should not heavily invest in a few big projects in the city center. Up next, Alok the Science reporter Prat Rujiwanarom talks to Associate Professor Dr. Panit Pujinda, Head of Department of Urban and Regional Planning, Faculty of Architecture, Chulalongkorn University, on the issue of inadequacy of public greenery in urban cities.
How our capital end up with having really few green space?
For WHO standard on green space for urban dwellers is 9.0 square meter per head. About 10 years ago, Bangkok used to have about 5.8 square meter per head. But right now, we have about nearly 7.0 square meter per head. In the past, we did not face this kind of problem, not because we have a lot of public green space, but because we did not need them. Even in the capital city of Thailand, about 50 years ago, most of Bangkokians live in very large land parcel with palace, castle, or very big house for the rich. Those kind of land had private garden and orchards in the same parcel. The richest owned the large land parcel, and they had big family. Their subordinaries and servants live in those kind of the complex. So nobody need private green space because they have their own private ones. But Bangkok changed drastically. People left big land parcels owned by the richest and live by their own in smaller land parcel like the subdivision projects. Private gardens became smaller and finally vanished from the residents. Unfortunately, we have not prepared Bangkok for this kind of situation. BMA does not have enough land for public green space.
As right now, Bangkok has 39 major public parks according to BMA, and there are 3 more parks open this year. Do you think Bangkok already have sufficient number of parks right now?
By number, we are moving up to the WHO standard of 9 square meter per head. BMA may think it called success, but the major problem from 39 big public parks is accessibility. When you have only big parks, that means the parks are located in the city center or sub-centers, which are very far from most of people's houses. People cannot walk or take a bike to the parks, and they cannot use the park as the recreation and exercising areas in their normal daily life. Only few people who obsess to exercising in the park put the effort to get to the parks. Most of them have to travel long distances and with costly transportation fee and time to enjoy parks we have.
Do you think why we need more public park and green space in Bangkok?
Clearly, we need more public parks, but we have to change our perspective on the word public. Normally, we think that we can call them and use them as public parks only if the parks are public owned. And that way of thinking led to scarce public parks and inaccessible to most of the people who live in Bangkok. We have to change our perspective that we need public uses on any kind of ownership, public, some of public or private owner. This is not the new paradigm. Most cities in the world being private land to use for several public purposes with the concept of privately owned public space or POPS. The POPS is the procedures to give the incentives or compensation to the target private land that have potential to be used for public purposes. The ownership of the land are still of private owners, but only the uses of the land or some part of are public use. The incentives could be direct compensation or barter with land tax exemption or development gain. For example, the city of Tokyo asked one private owner to give 30% of a parcel on Roppongi Hill to be a POPS, public parks. The landowner gets special allowance for building higher than the general law. For Thailand, we have the word of POPS in our Urban Planning Act since the first act in 1952, about 60 years ago. But we have never used it because we think the urban planning cannot give incentives or compensation to private owner, even if it is stated clearly in the act and it has been used around the world, but this is Thailand.
And do we have any example of this kind of park in Bangkok?
No, we don't have it at all. But last year, one group called Chama Soen in the cooperation with the Thai Health Promotion Foundation try to put the new concept of the public usage park on the private landowner. They use crowdfunding process to get the money and to get the help from the people who live around the very small park on the private landowner near Chulalongkorn Temple.
And how about the other major city in Thailand? Do they also have to fill green space in the city as well?
Currently, the other cities in Thailand have not yet having this kind of problem because the area and the population density in those cities are far smaller than Bangkok. People do not live far from rice fields around the cities, and most of them are still dominated by detached house with the garden inside the parcel. However, the major regional cities, for example, Chiang Mai, Nakhon Ratchasima, and Phuket, are at the beginning stage of the problems, and we have to be well prepared for this kind of problem in the future.
That is Unlock the Science reporter Prat Rujiwanarom talking to Associate Professor Dr. Panit Pujinda of Department of Urban and Regional Planning, Faculty of Architecture, Chulalongkorn University. We will take a short break now.
You are listening to Unlock the Science on Chula Radio Plus.
The definition of urban green spaces does not only limit to just public parks, but also includes other types of green areas such as communal gardens, agricultural areas, and forest lands. Therefore, greenery can provide many other benefits to the cities and their dwellers, in addition to serving as recreational areas for resting and relaxing with the nature. One of the other benefits that urban green spaces can provide is food security. The Sustainable Agriculture Foundation, a Bangkok-based environmental advocacy group which works to promote urban farming, points out that Bangkok residents are very vulnerable to food insecurity. Despite of ample food supplies in supermarkets, fresh markets, and convenience stores, Bangkok can easily suffer food shortage if the city's food supply is disrupted. This is because Bangkok relies almost entirely on food produced and transported from elsewhere. Therefore, the foundation stresses that Bangkok would need more urban farms and communal gardens in order to provide local food source for its residents. The organization also encourages urban communities to convert unused plot of land in their neighborhoods to communal gardens in allowing local people to grow their own food so they can have access to locally produced food even in the time of economic hardship. Since the health and well-being of people in urban cities is closely linked with its state of nature and environment, many major cities throughout the globe are now trying to bring back nature and native wildlife to their people. Urban green spaces, especially the natural ones such as forests and wetlands, are also essential for sustaining nature and ecosystems. According to the World Economic Forum, many metropolises such as Singapore, Sydney, Frankfurt, and New York have already started their own urban rewilding projects in order to redesign their urban spaces to better support biodiversity and ecosystems. Bangkok is another city that follows the urban rewilding trend. With the opening of Benjakiti Forest Park in early 2022, Bangkok now has new green space that is designed to recreate the original wetland landscape that Bangkok used to have. This forest section is an annex to the existing Benjakiti Public Park. Unlock the Science reporter Prat Ruchiwanarom talks to Siripannee Supratya, a veteran journalist whose expertise is in wildlife and ecosystems, about the significance of urban biodiversity and rewilding efforts of Bangkok.
What exactly is rewilding?
Well, rewilding, I think it's becoming a trendy term that gets thrown around a lot. In truth, it does mean restoring the quality of an ecosystem. It's a progressive approach to conservation in terms of letting nature heal itself. Human takes a step back and restoring, especially in considering to the animals that were perhaps driven out of or maybe got exterminated from the area. When considering rewilding, I think maybe it's easier if we look at the components of rewilding. So rewilding consider biodiversity, ecosystem functions, and ecosystem services. Ecosystem function is how the ecosystem works and processes, and how the components deliver goods and services for our needs, whether it's in indirect or directly. So these goods and services include in the ecosystem services. So these are regulating the temperatures of our, like how the trees regulate temperatures and air quality, how the ecosystem supporting us, like water recycling, water cycle, soil formation.
Why we need the rewilding for the city? What is the benefit of the biodiversity to the city and citizen?
The area of Bangkok is considered a flat plain, so it's a river estuary that's very abundant in resources and animal life. That's why way back when it was good for cultivating rice, and thus civilization was born here. But as the civilization or the city progresses, I think it's, how to put this, it's becoming more and more detached from the natural environment, and actually by becoming more detached, it creates more problem unto itself. Like, I think you all must have heard this, but Bangkok is, because it's a floodplain or the flat plain, it has flood often, and the coastline gets, so the sea level rises and the coastline gets eroded very quickly. So we are losing lots of land every year due to climate change and natural erosion whatsoever every year. But actually, if we conserve the area along the coastline, like the mangrove forests and natural vegetation along the coast, it would not stop but lessen the effect of the soil erosion. So actually, if we learn how to listen to the nature and learn how to live along in harmony with it, it would benefit us in the longer run.
Since right now Bangkok has a new public park that dedicated to the ecological restoration.
Yeah.
What is it called?
Benjakiti.
Benjakiti Forest.
First of all, the idea behind Benjakiti, I think I'm for it. I'm going for it because I think it's important, and it's a good thing that a lot of people are seeing the importance of having more quality green spaces in the city, and having wetlands. We don't see wetlands often because usually when we think of wild in Thai term, we would translate it as pa. And when you think of pa, you think of like the north. You think of the green hills with the dense forest and slight fog. The jungle. But actually, wild means a lot of things, including wetland, mangrove, lots and lots of landscapes. But this is a good surprise that they decide to do a wetland in the middle of the city. But however, I don't agree with a lot of it, like how they say it's sustainable and it's like promote native plants, and this is Central Park of Bangkok. I think it's a bit far-fetched for that. Sustainable, not sure. They said this could be another water basin, but I'm not sure how it's connected to the larger system of the Chao Phraya basin. It's quite flat, it's quite shallow, so I'm not sure how the maintenance in the long run is going to be. As you know, in Thailand, not just Bangkok, a lot of things gets done in terms of projects, and when the project is done, nobody is looking after it or maintain it for the longer run, so everything just deteriorates after that. And as for the native plants, I visit the park, and I think I don't see as much native plants as I would like to see if they promote themselves as lover of native plants and whatnot.
And how about the good side? Do you think this park have any the pro to the environment and nature of Bangkok?
Well, I guess it's a good start. I mean, I'm for one, I always think that Bangkok needs more quality green space. And by quality, it also has to do with how you measure quality of a green space. It also has to do with the size of the space, the age of the trees, the species that live in there, whether it's plants or animals or blah, 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 and number of wooden tree, not just any trees. So I always think it's important to have more quality spaces because of the, it's better for us. But I mean, this park, it's a good beginning, I hope.
I see.
It's a good beginning, but we must not stop there with...
I see.
Yeah, we should strive to do better.
One thing that we still did not touch upon is the issue about the biodiversity. Do you think why we need to have more wildlife, more biodiversity in the city?
Well, actually, a lot of it benefit us in a way that we don't realize. Like, lots of time we complain about having mosquitoes,
Yeah.
ใช่ไหม? Lots of things eat mosquitoes, like bats, lots of birds, but these animals, some of them are not really popular with us,
Yeah.
like bats. Like
The people don't like snake.
Yeah, people don't like snakes. People don't like bats, but like snakes, even monitor lizard, they eat lots of smaller animals like rats, pets, pigeons, which we don't like. So actually having a better dynamic between animals would help us in an indirect way. I would like, well, now that we are having the election for the Bangkok governor, I would like to see some of the candidates maybe talk about this, how we could, spread the knowledge about the diversity and the importance of having, urban animals living with us. And maybe they are not so cute and cuddly as you would like, but they are useful in their own ways.
Bangkok does not just have a ratio of urban green spaces lower than WHO's minimum requirement, but the city also has to deal with its drastic disparity of the access to public green spaces among its residents. It is clear that the lack of urban green spaces is one of the major challenges of Bangkok in making it a more livable city, but we are not without solutions to these problems. As there are many unused or abandoned plots of private land around Bangkok, Associate Professor Dr. Panit suggested that the idea of privately owned green spaces could be applied to tackle the problems of inadequacy and unequal distribution of public parks. Dr. Panit said the BMA should negotiate with owners of these unused lands by offering them compensations or other incentives in return for the right to use their lands as new public green spaces. Siripannee also highlighted that not just having more trees and green spaces in the city, conserving and maintaining urban biodiversity and functional ecosystems are also essential for assuring healthy environmental conditions in Bangkok. While we are working to increase more urban green spaces in various neighborhoods of Bangkok, it is worth to consider the ecological aspect of these green spaces in order to help the rewilding of the capital. Unlock the Science would like to thank Associate Professor Dr. Panit Pujinda of Department of Urban and Regional Planning, Faculty of Architecture, Chulalongkorn University, and independent environmental journalist Siripannee Supratya. I hope you enjoy our program. You can listen to Unlock the Science on Chula Radio Plus at FM 101.5 every Saturday from 1 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. You can also listen and follow us on our website curadio.chula.ac.th and our Facebook page. Our show is also accessible as podcasts, including on Apple and Spotify. See you again next Saturday. Have a nice day.
Unlock the Science is edited and produced by Sinfa Tunsarawut